Excellent. So happy to be here today. I'll introduce myself, and if you've seen me present before, you know that I always like to start my presentations with a joke. So here it goes. What does a baby computer call its father? Anyone? Anyone? Dada. Yeah, there you go. All right, there you go. For those of you who laughed, thank you. For those of you who didn't laugh, I have plenty of other bad jokes throughout my presentation to keep you entertained, so don't worry about that. So what do I do at Facebook? Head of Gaming Sales, North Asia and Emerging Markets. So that covers Korea and Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and India. And I'm here today to talk about two main things. First is to get into the detail around some of the key announcements we made at our annual developers conference, F8. And secondly, and more critically, about how we can solve the most difficult challenge in the gaming industry today, and that's app discovery. If you look at the volume of games in each of the app stores, both Google Play and the Apple App Store, there are over 1 million games in each of these, and your game is maybe one or a couple. Now, if we turn this around from a player's perspective, like myself, I come to one of these stores, I'm looking for a game that matches my interests or just to have some fun. Right? Basically, I'm looking for a good time. And one of the issues with the app stores is that they don't recognize that not all players are the same, right? We have different expectations, different interests, different motivations, and we just like playing different games. And we all know that screen real estate is limited depending upon what device you're on. So limited real estate is definitely an additional problem on these app stores. It's pretty apparent when you look at them. There might be some featured games, some curated lists, some top grossing or some top paid. And these lists are generally one size fits all. They're not really custom tailored to your interests and who you are as a player. So if you're looking for a match 3 game or an RPG game that suits your interests, it's highly unlikely you'll find it here. And that leads us to the next problem, which is people's time and attention are limited. There's only so much time in the day that people can find the ideal content for them. So I think that's really what the core problem is, right? I think it's about connecting people to the right content. It's about connecting an individual player to the right game based on their interests, their preferences. And what we're talking about in terms of Facebook solutions and how we can match developers like yourselves to players that are as passionate about your games as you were when you made them. And then at that time, it's about sharing these experiences with their friends. And if we want to look at it from a developer standpoint, right, it's really about finding that right audience, right? It's about finding the right match based on the intricacies of that game. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the tools we have around targeting the right audience on Facebook and finding the right person to play your game. So at Facebook, we have 3 ways to help with discovery. The first is great social experiences. Think about this as sharing moments of enthusiasm, moments of triumph during that game with people around you, right? Inherently, people are social, right? When great things happen to us, we want to share that with others. So that's one of the first fundamental building blocks. The second is cross-platform reach. And that's all about getting your game everywhere your player is going to be. So for example, if I'm on the subway or on the bus, I'm playing a game on my phone. When I get to work and I have some time in between meetings, I may be playing on my desktop or my laptop. And if I'm at home in front of the TV, I'm likely playing on my tablet, right? Facebook can help you get your game everywhere it needs to be so that it's top of mind for players, and then they can easily get back into that experience. And if you've built games on Facebook before, you know that Facebook is cross-platform by design. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is organic and paid distribution. So this means how to use the App Center, how to get placement there, as well as through other organic channels, and then something we're really excited to talk about today, which is our mobile app install ads. So let's go a little bit deeper into great social experiences. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about one of our core philosophies at Facebook, which is people first, right? I will get into some actual tactics and product detail around great social experiences, but this concept of people first really sets the foundation for everything we're going to talk about in this particular category. Now, from a gamer's perspective or from a developer's perspective, we're really saying player first. And this was one of the key themes at F8 this year and really fundamental to everything we do at Facebook. When we talk about player first, especially when it comes to sharing, it's about empowering players to share moments that they are passionate about and in a way that they can actually control, right? So it's about giving the player, it's about giving the user control of what they're doing. It's about allowing them to share great opportune moments. It's about giving them control to whom and when they share information. And it's about making a positive and delightful experience overall. And if we want to map that to games, right, I kind of think about it across these following points. Right? The first is Fiera moments. Right? So what does that exactly mean? It's moments of triumph and exhilaration that is inherent to playing and building games. Right? These moments are the kind of things people want to share, and it's the kind of things that people bond over. It's the things that you talk about when you meet friends at a coffee shop, over dinner, or maybe at a water cooler. And then that bifurcates into two other areas, which is competition and cooperation. And those are pretty straightforward, right? When I'm put into a position of plight and I'm battling to succeed against my friend, some random person on the internet, or maybe the machine, the result is one of those exhilarating moments that I want to share with others. Right? The other part of this is cooperation. So for example, if you're playing Warcraft and teamed up with 25 other players to defeat some encounter to some boss, again, we feel good, right? You know, high fives all around. These are the kind of stories we want to tell each other and the kinds of things that we encourage players to share with one another. So tactically, the first place to start is our shared dialogue. How many people in the room today are currently building games on Facebook? Show of hands. Great, awesome. And how many of you are using a shared dialogue? A few more? Okay, same people. It's a really easy way to share structured and unstructured content on Facebook. There's no login required. There's nothing you need to do in terms of authenticating users. So even for like some of the most casual games out there, like Flappy Birds, for example, where you get a score and you want to share that score with your friends, you press one button, it'll be swapped over to the Facebook app, where you get a form, and you pass along a screenshot or high score. And again, the user is empowered to take over this experience. Like the user is in control, again, emphasizing the notion of player first. Now, if you've been building games on Facebook, you know that the most predominant and fundamental way to build games on Facebook is using a request. They're a great driver of growth through invites, but before, requests were non-specific, they were generic. You'd receive a notification that said something like, Stefan sent you a request. Now requests have more context through the power of our Open Graph API. We've added 2 new requests at GDC, send and ask for, as you can see on screen here. And we just announced another one at F8, turn, for turn-based games. So you're getting a lot more detailed, a lot more specific, and we believe this will increase conversion for your games. So let's move on to cross-platform reach. So what does this mean? This means getting your game in front of players everywhere they want to be. Right? It's about game ubiquity, right? Across devices, across OSs. So if I'm playing a game against my friend, I really don't care what hardware device he's on. I don't care what phone he's on. I don't care what OS he's on. I don't care if he's playing on desktop or laptop or tablet. What I care about is that he's having the same experience that I am. And at Facebook, our goal is to provide developers the tools to allow players to customize their experience so it's player first. So we have a few SDKs that support this: Unity, JavaScript, iOS, and Android. And our Graph API supports all of our core products, such as login, sharing, apps, and ad events, or app events and ads, excuse me. Now, if you look at these numbers on screen, they're incredibly powerful. Cross-platform equals more engagement. So let me define this a bit, because when I saw these numbers come out, it really took me back. When you cross-platform publish across devices and across OSs, it has a multiplying effect, right? It's not just additive. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It is 1 + 1 = 5, right? So we did a study around the world looking at developers that have published mobile to canvas, canvas to mobile across multiple OSs and multiple devices. And we found that it increases engagement on mobile games by 240% or 2.4x. Canvas engagement, so desktop engagement, by 150%. And finally, payment volume by 330%. And at the end of the day, it's all about keeping the lights on, right? It's about making money. So these results are phenomenal when you cross-platform publish. And I'll be sharing with you a case study at the end of my presentation that pulls this all together and specifically goes into what that developer did in terms of cross-platform publishing. So organic and paid distribution. I'll first talk about the App Center. We had a major announcement at F8 about the redesign of App Center. You'll see here the new design, and the biggest news about the redesign of App Center is now it's customized and personally tailored to you, based on your likes, interests, and previous gameplay. We feel with this new redesign and new GUI, we are taking the first step into solving the problem I mentioned earlier with the other app stores, which is one-size-fits-alls. You're now getting personalized recommendations based on your behaviors on Facebook, based on the previous games that you've played, and based on your profile data. At Facebook, we believe the most powerful tool for user acquisition is the mobile app install ad. We believe this is true on two dimensions. The first is the volume of downloads and the impact they're having in the gaming industry today. And I'll go into a few stats in a minute. And the second is based on Facebook's targeting capabilities. Now, how many of you in the room have run Facebook advertising campaigns? I think a few more, come on. If you haven't, I've got some work to do. I'm in sales. All right. So mobile app installs have driven over 350 million installs to Google Play and the Apple App Store since January of 2013. That is huge. This is the biggest user acquisition marketing tool on the internet today. And 60% of the top grossing apps on Google Play and Apple Store use mobile apps, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the install, it's about lifetime value, actually getting revenue per user. So let's get into some detail around Facebook's targeting capabilities. I've been at Facebook for about 4 years, and one of the main reasons I joined the company is the highly precise targeting that we can provide game developers and publishers as they hyper-target to get the right user or right player to match the game that they built. We've got 3 primary targeting capabilities. The first is core audiences, the second is custom audiences, and the third are lookalikes. And I'll go into detail about what each of those mean. The first is core audiences, and you can target based on age, gender, geo, device, operating system, and then a few other categories on the left-hand side of the screen. So precise interests, right? Those are the things that you put in your profile. It's things that you've liked that are on the internet that have been added to your profile. So psychographic things that are within your Facebook profile. The second are broad categories. We call this BCT, broad category targeting. We've got a category on Facebook called console gaming, right? So if you've got information about console gaming on your profile, you'll be put into a targeting category called console gaming for BCT. Partner categories, this is essentially using third-party data to match that back to Facebook for targeting. And finally, similar apps. So previous apps that you've played that we feel would rank you towards a new set of apps or interests. So this is our basic and most general level of targeting. It's called core audiences. Second is custom audiences. So this gets a little bit more detailed. This is highly precise, and it's based on 4 pieces of targeting criteria. 1, email address. 2 is phone number. 3 is IDFA ID, and 4 is Facebook ID. So if you are a mobile ad network, if you have a website where you store data on your players and you've got information on them, we can take that database of email addresses and match that back to Facebook. We'll match that back to our 1.2 billion user profiles, and we can specifically send those people ads. Now, if they've already installed the games, we can use this targeting for our re-engagement ads. We can also, again, target by IDFA and our Facebook ID. And then finally is lookalike audiences. So we can create clusters of customers that are similar to your current customers or the current players that you have data on. Based on psychographic interests, demographic interests, you give us a set of criteria, and we can match that back to information that we have in their Facebook profile on our platform. There's been a lot of discussion over the last 2 days around better insights and information on game players, how to mine data from databases, and I think Facebook is actually doing a fantastic job of that right now across our 3 targeting capabilities: core audiences, custom audiences, and lookalike audiences. So I want to share with you a recent case study that we actually launched about a week ago from our marketing team. It's of a Korean client called FinCon. They're one of our biggest clients up in Korea, and there's a game called Hello Hero. They use the Unity SDK for cross-platform publishing, and it took one engineer 2 days to port Hello Hero to Facebook Canvas using that Unity SDK. That is amazing. This game is now in over 150 countries around the world, right? And they're seeing the same results that I mentioned earlier, if not better, around cross-platform publishing, sharing great social experiences, all those numbers you saw earlier about higher engagement on desktop, higher engagement on mobile, and higher payment volume. They use their mobile app install ads to drive installs as well as our desktop app ads. And the results are here. 4x increase in monthly active users, a 31% increase in retention, 25% increase in average revenue per user, and a 30% increase in overall global revenue. These numbers are huge. I recommend you take a read of this case study. It's on our case study website, and we're also going to be publishing a video case study in about a week or 2. So to summarize, we have 3 key ways that Facebook can help with discovery of games and apps. First is great social experiences, the second is cross-platform reach, and the third is organic and paid distribution. And the last slide of my presentation, I wanted to make it really practical. Right? We've talked about some high-level concepts here. We've talked about some product detail, some product announcements from F8, our annual developers conference. This is our team that sits in Singapore. It's our gaming team. And we are organized by country. So we've got Chinese speakers, Japanese speakers, Korean speakers, speakers that communicate in various Southeast Asian languages. And we're all here today. We're all here to help you. If you're interested in marketing campaigns on Facebook, and you see anyone wearing a Facebook t-shirt, we're happy to talk to you. Our platform team is here today. Our engineering team are here today. So I really wanted to make this, a way to just kind of shake hands with our team on the ground in Singapore. We've got about 25, 30 people that are working on the games business. So please come find us at the break. Thank you for your time.